Hi, this is Jim from Safety Wars. Before we start the program, I want to make sure everyone understands that we often talk about OSHA and EPA citations, along with some other regulatory actions from other agencies, legal cases, and criminal activity. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Proposed fines are exactly that, and they are often litigated, reduced, or vacated. We use available public records, news accounts, and press releases. We cannot warranty or guarantee the details of any of the stories we share, since we are not directly involved with these stories, at least not most of the time. Enjoy the show.
This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
And from the border of liberty and prosperity in the highway to the north, this is Safety Wars for Friday, March 7th. Ignore the date behind me, right? 2025. I forgot to change the calendar. Sorry, guys. Anyway, how's everybody doing out there today? We shouldn't get any interruptions. The video portion is pre-recorded. I am doing the audio portion live here. We had a couple of little snags with the audio on Wednesday, I guess it was. So, oh well. Sorry, folks. On the video portion, we're having things worked out here. Gotta mess around with it a little bit more. So, anyway, what's going on? A lot's going on. An awful lot is going on. Now, having these conversations, right? I've been giving training classes the last couple of days. That's one of the reasons why you didn't hear me yesterday. It was like after 8 hours of talking to people. Now you come here and it's like, man, am I going to give a good show or not? And I'm trying to give you folks the best show possible here. It's like, man, I can't do it, man. I can't do it. Right? I don't want to waste people's time. So, okay, hold on. For some reason, I'm not hearing on Safety FM. Hang on. All right, okay, there we go. So, up here in the Northeast, we had huge issues. Huge. With windstorms last night. Some areas are still without power, and this is at 8 p.m. at night. They've been out. Power's been down the entire day. That's usually the way they roll around here because for some reason everybody wants the power lines above ground and not below ground, right? And this is the way it's been for the last 50 years. Areas in North Jersey, they got power, actually more than 50. Up in North Jersey, they got power in the late 1950s in a lot of rural areas of Sussex County. There, and they kept things above ground. On the house that I own up there, you could go inside the shed. There's an old shed. No, it's not old. We're still using it. We maintained it over the years. And there is an old-fashioned bull switch. It looked like something out of the old Frankenstein movies. And that's where they kept the generator. And it's still set up for a generator to feed power to the main house. So, being without power, without electric, not exactly an old concept. And there are people today that live in rural areas without power. And they manage to get by. But, you have the whole argument about the good old days. Everybody wants the good old days. Hey, we got to get the good old days. As Ronald Reagan said, the good old days weren't so good. We had rampant diseases. Some of those diseases are making resurgence today. And, it's, it is what it is here. So I'm, this morning, I walked my daughter to the bus, right? And the school bus. And I'm there with the other parents, and one of the parents brings the dog. They got a new puppy, I forget the name of the puppy, but the puppy is very cute and it's playing with everybody and, very energetic, very friendly and everything else. And then we hear this, boom! I'm like, what the belief was that? And about a half a block away, there's a school bus just stopped. And everybody wants to go look at it. I said, I tell you what, I'll go look at it. I don't know whether it's safe or not. Let me see if everything is okay. There may be something going on there. No, we have problems with people running over animals in our neighborhood. Some of my neighbors like to let their dogs run loose in the middle of busy streets. I don't think they like it, but it's just what happens. And last year, I think maybe the year before, there was a dog that was run over, and it was a horrendous scene, and, I had to keep the kids away, blah, 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 all at the bus stop in the morning. So I go walking on up to the bus, and sure enough, it's not clear to me what happened. Like, everyone's saying this happened, that happened, this happened, that happened. Looking at it, right, since I've been involved with the human organizational performance, and one of the things is context drives behavior, right? You got to know the context. Don't jump to conclusions. You got to know what's going on. Do the learning teams. Do all of that. So in years gone by, it would be like, fire his ass, like the Secretary of Transportation. Any near misses, we're going to have to fire the pilot. Well, guess what? You might have had a near miss because the pilot was really skilled and you didn't have a plane crash. Right? That is a distinct possibility. And maybe you want to keep that pilot, keep those FAA people in there because, hey, God, you have to know what the whole story as it used to be. Anyway, I go up there and apparently, however it happened, a branch or a tree was partially collapsed. This bus hit the tree, or the tree fell as the bus was coming by and hit the bus, which you can't do anything about, which took down an electric line. And I tell you what, the thing must have arced because the windshield was broken and everything else. So going there, okay. Is everybody? I come up to the bus. Okay, I see there's nothing there, no down wires, and it could hurt me. And let's get the lay of the land. I go up to the bus. I say, hey, dude. I don't know the guy's name. I say, dude, you okay? And are the children okay? Yeah, the kids are okay. We're okay. We just had the broken windshield here. I said, okay. I said, now, he's on the phone. I said, do you want me to call it into 911 or are you calling 911? Which one is it? Yeah, Jessica's father. I'll call 911. Okay. And then I walk back to the bus stop. Nobody's hurt. Obviously, the kids are very upset because they like going to school. It's a wonderful school they go to. And, and one of the mothers says, look, I'll just drive all the kids to school. Not a big deal. Okay, good, and we proceed. And, of course, I have an almost teenager, and, getting them out of bed, forget about it. So I end up having to drive him to school anyway. I come back, and they're offloading the kids onto another bus, and, because they can't really drive the bus with a broken windshield. Not a very good idea, even though, hell, back in the day when I had no money, I still have no money, I would have probably just driven the thing, but can't do that with a CDL. Can't do that. So they offloaded the bus, and everybody went very long. It was like the biggest story in the town today. So I ended up putting it up onto Facebook, onto my town's webpage, blah, blah, Facebook page. And and parents were like, oh, thank you for answering this because we had all different types of rumors out there. I said, well, that's what I do, right? But what's my point in telling you this story? You gotta see, it's easy to jump to conclusions. The parents jumping to conclusions. If you're a safety professional or manager, which this program is geared toward, you need to not jump to conclusions. You need to find out what exactly is going on before you start accusing people of this, accusing people of that. Now, John Surma, who is an attorney, labor law attorney, I'll give him a little plug. I've had conversations with him before. He had a very interesting post today on LinkedIn about the whole thing. A lot of times we get letters from regulatory agencies, or we get letters, and we get, and the biggest one that I always hear is with the accident reports. The accident report has got to be done by the close of business. I tell people, maybe a preliminary report has to be done by the close of business, where you want to know what generally is going on. But if it's a major accident, other than a boo-boo, right? Well, in which case you're right in the big book of boo-boos like Doc McStuffins out there. It might take a couple of days. You got to gather your eggs, and then because you have a week to determine recordability according to the regulation, so you got a couple of days or 5 business days, I believe it is. But anyway, let's do a quality report, a quality investigation. Learning team, we call it now. I don't even like calling it an investigation. We're going to learn what happened. We're going to learn how work is done. We're going to learn what went wrong. We're going to learn what could have really gone wrong, and we're going to learn what went right. Because more things, chances are, went right than went wrong with this. And with that, and John Surma does, it's like this. He put out, as Surma, S-U-R-M-A, where he got a document request from OSHA. And they wanted, and the thing is, the whole gist of what he said is, the mistake that people often make is they give these people, especially when you don't have an attorney handling things, is that you give them everything. My point with this was get an attorney, right? Give them the minimal amount of information, and then if they need more, they'll ask for more. And don't give them the rope to hang you with this, unless you're forced to. I mean, yeah, you're forced to, hey, this is what happened, whatever it is. But you don't want to voluntarily give information over. What I would recommend you do is hire a qualified attorney and have that attorney go and manage the accident with the regulatory agency. Why? As John had raised today, a lawyer, based on this questionnaire that OSHA gave, a lawyer would say this is too broad and and most of this stuff has has nothing to do with the accident, has nothing to do with nothing here. All right. Now, so one of the things was provide a copy of the company's safety program with their disciplinary policy. Okay. But the next question, provide a copy of employees that were disciplined. Yes, and you can see AI wrote this or whatever because it's the wrong syntax and speech, like I should be one to talk. But basically, what if, what are they asking for? 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years of disciplinary reports? What are they doing? Who knows? Specifically, what are you asking for? They ask for often during an investigation, whether it's going to be for a car accident, whether it's going to be for a regulatory investigation, whether it's going to be anything else. They're going to ask you open-ended questions. This is where when I do training, right, for accident investigations, I always talk about statement analysis. What is statement analysis? If you're an investigator, you learn to ask open-ended questions, right? And you have to evaluate what the person is saying. Is the person telling you something credible, not credible, the truth, the lie, something accurate, something inaccurate? And there are certain techniques for that out there. Body language. When they're writing an incident report, how is it written? Is it written by the person? Is the witness statement written by a person? Or is it written by the foreman or supervisor? At which point it has an extremely reduced value in my mind, and in court too. So these open-ended questions you have to be very, very careful with. Are you giving them too much information? Or are you not giving them enough? And as I point out, right, and people don't like it when I say this, you do not have to talk to an OSHA person. Don't have to. You have Miranda rights. What if you're in a state like New York and you make an admission to OSHA, which is a federal agency? What if you give them information that now they pass it on over to the Attorney General? Now you're dealing with a criminal investigation. Take a look out of the Russ Productions case in Arizona, where you had, New Mexico, where you had Alec Baldwin yapping, Guess what? If he wasn't he probably would not have had to face the prosecution that he did, and he was acquitted, basically, on this. Right? Basically, they dropped the case. He was acquitted. He wouldn't have had to go through that. But in dealing with the tragedy of Helena Hutchins being killed and then someone else getting hurt, he felt inclined and very upset. You could see, it just pains me to see his look when he was on the phone talking to whomever, probably his wife, I would imagine, with that. And you don't have to give him the information. Generally speaking, if you are foreman level or above, if you say this is the way we do things, they may count that as company policy. So what do I always suggest? If the governor hits the fan, you need to get an attorney that specializes in dealing with the Department of Labor. That's what you do. You gotta let the attorney handle it. You don't want to go into, like I had a client about a year and a half ago. Right, by the way, I have the Ask the Safety Professional session. I charge a nominal fee, and you get me for 1 hour, and you ask me anything. Right, and I had a client call me up who had a real serious problem, and what ended up happening, I said, "Well, credit card, you got me for an hour." So we talked for an hour on this case, and that 1 hour was like I talked to him for 20 minutes, and then hey, okay, let me think about this, and then he calls me up a day later. We talk for another 20 minutes, and then the last 20 minutes, I go to the facility and talk to him face to face, that sort of thing. The facility was in town, so it wasn't like I was going all over the place doing stuff. But what ended up happening was, we found, I said, look, you need to get an attorney for this one. This is not something a certified safety professional can handle, unless the certified safety professional is an attorney, because there's definitely going to be a lawsuit. And this is like big thing. You're going to get whacked. And the guy eventually got whacked for like $100,000 in penalties and proposed penalties. And he went to the attorney, got an attorney, and the attorney knew nothing about Department of Labor law, never dealt with a regulatory agency, and it did not turn out exactly the way it could have had he had a qualified person. Right? Basically, I knew more about the legal proceedings than the attorney that he hired. I said, where did you find this attorney? He said, oh, I Googled it. I Googled this attorney. Okay. Don't do that. I would have given you one. I offered you one that's qualified in this area. And then we also found out that all of his training records were bought on the street by a guy who I know from a facility that I worked in, who is the biggest ball buster that you could ever imagine when it comes to safety. You're talking about infinitesimal things, non-serious or de minimis violations that would not have any bearing on someone getting hurt. You're concentrating on that rather than things will actually get people hurt and killed. First, are those other things important? Yeah, they're important, but what's going to hurt you and what's going to kill you? Real simple, what you prioritize. Then we're going to worry about all the other stuff. So what was he doing? He was moonlighting with all this crap going on in New York with a 30-hour training, mandatory. He was selling certificates on the street. Allegedly. How do we find out about that one? I'll tell you how I found out about that one. It was easy. We started talking to him, intro to OSHA things. And I said to him, you're 30-hour trained. How did you not know this? The instructor didn't go over it. Didn't go over it well? Or didn't go over it? Well, I just bought him on the street. Okay. Now, you have a problem. Had you attended the class for the first hour, they would have went over all this crap. And you would have avoided a problem. What it basically was somebody was out there, and I'll sanitize this. They were interested in this, filming a TikTok video, and they got hurt on the site. Again, no supervision, no nothing else. That's why you got to be careful with these cell phones, right? And the TikTok videos. So that's number 2. Next thing that happened, all this happened, you're going to love this. So you have in certain industries, the energy industry, the petrochemical industry, pharmaceutical industry, and several others, you have third-party auditing services for safety plans. So back in the day, before they had these third-party auditing programs, you had you'd be working at a general contractor or environmental management firm, like I was, and you have a subcontractor. They send you their health and safety plan. And you read the health and safety plan, and you say, well, this is either a good plan, we're going to accept it, or this is a bad plan, and we're going to reject it, or we have some questions. You need some clarification. You're missing this, you're missing that sort of thing. And unfortunately, what happens is in most jurisdictions, if you're doing that, again, I'm not an attorney. I don't play one on TV or the internet here or on Safety FM. If you do that, now you're taking some of the liability. And some places, fine and dandy, no problem taking that liability because we're in control. We want to be in control. Other places that I've worked with, right, more recently, they're like, we're telling them they got to have a plan, but we're not saying that's the correct plan, and we're not reviewing it, we're not doing shit with it. And then you look at the plan, and it's like, you got to be kidding me. It's like, this looks like it was typed on an Apple computer in the sticky program. No, if you have an Apple computer, you know what those are, the stickies. I said, one of the plans I was like, holy Guvino. You got to be kidding me. Well, we can't. I said, this isn't adequate at all. They're missing this. They're missing this. Well, we can't review it. Blah, 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 blah. I said, under the multi-employee citation policy of OSHA, there's a possibility you may get caught up on this because this isn't even in our plan. Well, it doesn't have to be. I was like, okay, whatever. Your call. So what they came up with was programs. No, a business came up where you enter in your NAICS code, right? With this service, there's 3 different services that do the same thing, and it says, "Well, I'm this company," and they give you sections of what should be in your health and safety plan, in their opinion, according to their algorithm and their experience and everything else. Usually turns out to be anywhere from 25 to 35 sections. And for normal situation, if you're working in, let's say, California, there's more, that sort of thing. You have to have like an I2P2 section. And you go in there, and you're not even saying that's your plan. You're not even saying that's an OSHA compliant plan. You're just saying that the plan meets the requirements of the service. Usually, you meet the service. Usually, it meets the OSHA requirements. But don't assume that. Don't assume that by a long run. Right? This hat is all screwed up that I'm wearing. But uncomfortable. So, what's my point? It goes in. It goes through the whole thing. You have to enter in your safety statistics, TRIR, experience modification rate, your DART rate for the last 3 years, and it goes all the way through the whole thing. And I recently had a customer say, I had an accident. I called up the people involved with this, and they said to me, I'm not going to mention there's like 4 levels of people involved with this. They said to me, well, you're a damn fool then. And he says, what do you mean? Well, you shouldn't have reported any accidents. What's wrong with you? Now you screwed up your safety statistics. And this goes to show you that if it is measured, it is manipulated. I said, was there an ambulance called? The guy said, yeah. I said, this was a major injury, wasn't it? Yeah. I said, did you get a call from OSHA? He said, not yet. I said, well, guess what? You have to put it on the log. Because I can guarantee you that town, every ambulance there reports everything to OSHA. And it's a workers' comp situation. OSHA will eventually come around. Good chance of it. So, number 3, you're lying on that, and that paperwork is going for insurance policies and everything. You got to apply for insurance. You got to produce that for the insurance company. I said, at that point, now you're dealing with a potential felony because now it's insurance fraud. It's very, it sucks. So with that, we went on for 28 minutes. We're going to go to commercial break, and we'll come back at you after the commercial break.
Safety Wars is streaming now.
SafetyFM.com.
Have you listened or watched the Safety War show? It does stream live on the radio and on the streamer-emers that we have. So if you have not taken a listen to Jim Bolzel and what the hell he's doing every evening with Safety Wars, I would strongly encourage you to take a view or take a listen, whichever option is available for you, and take a listen to what the hell he has going on. It will take some deep dives in some information that you might be interested in.
In the professional safety community,
communication, and planning are just a few keys to your program's success. The question many practitioners have is, where do I start? Dr. Jay Allen, the creator of the Safety FM platform and host of the Rated R Safety Show, has built a global foundation to help you along the way. Go to safetyfm.com and listen to some of the industry's best and most involved professionals, including Blaine Hoffman with the Safety Pro, Sam Goodman with the Hop Nerd, Sheldon Primus with the Safety Consultant, Jim Pozell with Safety Wars, Emily Elrod with Unapologetically Bold, and many others. As individuals, we can do great things, but as a team, we become amazing. Dial into safetyfm.com today and surround yourself with a powerful force of knowledge and support.
Is your safety training old, stale, and hackneyed? Is your safety trainer still preaching a warped version of behavior-based safety? How about safety training that is designed to actually address and assess your hazards and liabilities and is not standardized baloney from generations ago? Contact the Safety Wars team at safetywars.com or call me, Jim Polzel, at 845-269-5772. Remember, if you are receiving this message, you are the solution to unsafe workplaces. OSHA recordables, catastrophic losses, environmental disasters. You want answers? So do I. This is Jim Polzel with Safety Wars.
That's my daddy!
Yes, Jessica, I am your father.
Safety Wars is streaming now.
SafetyFM.com.
All right, so here we are. All right, so we're going to go over some EPA news today. All right, it's been a couple of days. Now, we're going to revisit what we did the other day that didn't work out on the audio, on the video end. And that's specifically Boston. Not Boston. Sorry, Baltimore. With that, I mean, I don't know what to say with Baltimore, with the Department of Public Works and the Sanitation Department and all that. I mean, it was like I was reading something from the 1970s on how they used to run their safety department. And by the way, those are all public officials, so I think I could say that. And it's all on the public record because the Office of Inspector General for Maryland, or the city, had some really choice things to point out in that report. So go back and check the audio portion on the podcast on that. This week, so this is from, again, I had the moniker I created, not Newt Gingrich, Green Conservative, right? Because I used to operate a publication called the American Environmentalist Newsletter. And the point was that is American, right? An American-based form of environmentalism, Amerocentric. And Newt Gingrich caught on to the idea and ended up writing a whole book on it. And what happened was, he was, stole my info, which, okay, that's all. I believe he did. All's fair in love and war, as they say. I don't blame him. It was a great idea. He took it and ran with it and was pretty successful for a while with that moniker. And people used to say, hey, come over to me. I was never able to monetize that. But it's like this. Oftentimes, people, they're in support of a policy or in government agency, and that agency could do no wrong. That group could do no wrong. And what happens is, if you do that, all of a sudden you look silly. As I always say, to my customers, I have a responsibility, and if I was a direct hire working for someone, I have a responsibility to advocate for your position until it starts making me look stupid or silly. And this is what happens with the EPA this week. So this was from today, and this week the U.S. EPA, and this is from March 7th, right off the EPA website. This week, U.S. EPA press office fact-checked the Washington Post's absurd coverage defending the allocation of $2 billion to power forward. I don't know anything about this. I'm just reading a press release. To Power Forward Communities, a group linked to Stacey Abrams, for which the Post called criticisms vastly overblown. EPA's press office noted that it is no surprise that the Washington Post continues to toe the line for the radical left that are quick to defend apparent cronyism instead of actually doing the work to investigate on behalf of the American public. The Post reporting completely disregards the fact that none of the money was transferred out of the federal government until after Election Day. That was evidently on the part of the previous administration to ensure it did not remain in the newly elected Trump administration's hands, essentially tossing gold bars off the Titanic. So basically what the EPA is saying, the EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin is saying, I don't know, he's saying it, but it's his agency. He's essentially saying it, is that the money, there was a slush fund, and they had to use money in the slush fund, so surprising when Kamala Harris lost the election, all of a sudden they started to distribute the slush fund, or what we used to call street money on this. All right. The EPA's press office, taking a page from the team that ran during the first Trump administration, called out media bias that it believes crossed the line into lying about its policies. The EPA has turned its guns on the Washington Post as one of the first targets and said it, and this is a quote here, said it would be just as quick to call out bias as it would to be recognize the accomplishments of the agency headed by Lee Zeldin. Targeting the outlet's stories, questioning the impact of Zeldin's savings as he follows the lead of Elon Musk's Doge, the agency today said the Washington Post has devolved into the radical left's own Pravda. By the way, Pravda means truth in Polish and in Russian, and Pravda was the official magazine in the Soviet Union, official newspaper, Pravda, Truth. Right? The unsigned statement, I have to say that because people weren't alive during the Cold War, and people forget what the hell happened there. Right? The unsigned statement added, it should come to as no surprise that they jump to toe the line or are quick to defend apparent cronyism instead of actually doing the work to investigate on behalf of the American public. It is no wonder their failing newspaper is hemorrhaging readers. Addition is the agency's review of new Biden-era contracts to a group aligned with Trump critic and failed Georgia political candidate Stacey Abrams. She was also played, hold on. Here, I gotta double check this. Okay, Stacey Abrams, also a fellow Star Trek fan. She was in the President of Earth during the couple of last episodes of Star Trek Discovery. So that is Stacey Abrams there, right? The outlet called up for Charles Abrams' science group vastly overblown. And this is the agency's review of Biden-era contracts to a group aligned with Trump critic and failed Georgia political candidate Stacey Abrams. Trump administration has said a group she is associated with, Power Forward Communities, received promises of $2 billion. However, the EPA stuck to its earlier statement, one that was memorable for its claim that the last-minute Biden contract, as well as others, were proof that the Democratic administration was tossing gold bars off the Titanic. The EPA's trademark was an aggressive tactic to call out media bias during the first Trump administration when the press attacked former EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt and agency claims. So, here we have I'm not authorized to share that. So let me do this, stop sharing the screen, and go back to my beautiful face. So the Washington Examiner has this: EPA goes scorched earth against media bias, according to the Washington Post article by Paul Bellard. I don't see a date on this, so... March 6, 2025, that was yesterday. EPA's press office taking a page from the team that ran it during the first called out media bias that it believes crossed the line into lying about policies. And going on and on. I just read the whole thing off the press release on that. So the U.S. EPA, their Twitter feed states is this Twitter? Yes, I guess it is. Yeah, X. EPA press office fact sheets at the Washington Post. It should come to no surprise that they jump to toe the line and are quick to defend apparent cronyism instead of actually doing the work to investigate on behalf of that. Since the Washington Post won't ask the tough questions, we'll do it for them. If this money was appropriated, awarded, and obligated above board, why did the Biden administration rush to execute the transfers out of the government after Election Day? Why were none of the funds at the bank drawn down until after Inauguration Day? Why would these experienced organizations rely on a new entity with zero experience or track record to apply to and handle the execution of this program for them? So, the plot thickens here. But going back to what I said with this, right? Big environmentalist. I consider myself, still am. I have 2 degrees, environmental science, environmental policy, worked to protect the environment, to clean up the environment for many, many, many years. Even today, I just got a project this week where we're going to be cleaning up the environment on a project. So I'm a big believer in the EPA and the mission of the EPA to clean up the environment, to make all waters fishable and swimmable, to make air breathable. And I'm a big believer in this, right? But what happens is when they get involved with these political groups, they lose credibility. In my opinion, they lose credibility a lot. And when it's apparent shenanigans and shameful things going on, it hurts their mission. And people like me, who are, I'm on the right-hand side of the aisle, I'm not going to lie. Okay, I call Rush Limbaugh a liberal when he was alive, as a joke. But that's what I really believe anyway. It's doesn't help the cause if you get involved with bad organizations. I pointed this out when I was a member of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, that they were getting involved with globalists, right? We were right 15 years ago. 17 years ago. I was right since 1992. You can't get involved with the globalists. You can't do it. Why can't you get involved with these folks? Globalism will happen. Now, we're a world community here. Globalists is where they promote extra government organizations or quasi-government organizations over sovereign citizens. Sovereign countries. Sovereign citizens, different thing. Sovereign countries, and companies give up their sovereignty to unaccountable groups. I'm against that. And when I said to the ELCA, I said, look, you're getting involved with groups that have a stated purpose that they want to co-opt the church and get approval from the church for legitimacy. And guess what? I'm talking religion. And of course, you get ignored, you get, right, the whole thing with Gandhi. First they laugh at you, then they beat you, then you win eventually. Something like that, the quote goes. And that's basically what I see happening here is, now, I told the church, don't do the blah, blah, blah. Now they're bleeding members. They're bleeding members like you wouldn't believe because of the groups that they got involved with. my denomination, Lutheran Church of Missouri Synod, is also losing a lot of members was because people are dying out. Right? But anyway, what's my point here? You got to be careful who you get involved with. Are they a good organization? Or, and this goes for workplaces as well as everything else, because guess what? My understanding is most states are at-will states. They can get rid of you for any reason. So why associate yourself with bad companies that don't care about you? That don't care about anybody else, that are okay with getting people killed? Yes, I said that because we're fighting the safety war here. Let's take another commercial break here. I tell you what, on the Safety FM side, let's play a little bit of music, Love in the Safety Zone.
Hard hat on my head, set the alarm. High voltage love in your arms. Steel toe boots, steal my heart. Now love's a machine, start to start. Danger signs, but we don't mind. We're safety certified, hearts aligned. Locked out, tagged out, hearts entwined. You and me, we're one of a kind. Fire extinguisher, spark of desire. Emergency exits, this love's on fire. Hard hat area, yeah, we comply. Our love's as strong as reinforced supply. Our love's like gears, it turns so true. Turbines of passion spinning with you. Mechanical love, it's built to last. Safety first, romance moving fast. Danger signs, but we don't mind. We're safety certified, hearts aligned. Locked out, tagged out, hearts entwined. You and me, we're one of a kind. Worksite romance, it's OSHA approved. Love that's steady, never misused. Red tape barriers can't keep us apart. Love evolves safety from the start. Danger signs, but we don't mind. We're safety certified, hearts aligned. Locked out, tagged out, hearts entwined. You and me, we're one of a kind. Worksite romance, it's OSHA approved. Love that's steady, never misused. Red tape barriers can't keep us apart. Love evolves safety from the start. Worksite romance, it's OSHA approved. Love that's steady, never misused. Red tape barriers can't keep us apart. Love evolves safety from the start.
That is Safety Warrior with Love in the Safety Zone. I know, it's like Weird Al. It's ridiculous, some of these songs. But I kind of laugh with them. Yes, I own the licensing for all of them, in case you're wondering. So don't have a heart attack there, Jay Allen. Right? I own them. Reported cases of Hantavirus. So, Gene Hackman and his wife, one of my favorite actors, all-time actors, and his wife died recently. Turns out, the current thing that they came out with about 11 a.m. Eastern time this morning was his wife had Hantavirus. Right? I mean, bad disease, and Hantavirus. And what happened was he had Alzheimer's and heart issues, and he might have been hanging out for like a week in that house with his dead wife. Right? And hold on 1 minute. This might be an emergency. Hang on. Okay, everybody. I have to take a little break here, so hold on.
Yeah. Oh. 2025, it's rolling in. Safety first, let's start the spin. Protect your hands, your eyes, your grit. Oceans heal, let's all begin. Fireworks, they light the skies, but safety glows within our eyes. Goggles, gloves, a wise disguise. Keep those limbs, love, no goodbyes. So drop the ball, not the guard. Asha rules may seem so hard, but they're here to keep us smart, safe and sound in every part.
All right, so sorry everybody there, but I just got an eyewitness report on the bus accident this morning. Basically, as they're lucky something really bad didn't happen. Essentially, the bus was going, and a tree fell just as the bus was passing by and hit the bus. I was like, wow, that's incredible. But anyway, Gene Hackman and his wife here died of Hantavirus. And, you know, his wife, Betsy Aracana, died of the disease, right? And then he was hanging out for like a week because, he, you know, no, if you've ever knew anybody with that type of illness, I mean, it's horrible with what goes on there. And, you know, with that. So let's talk about Hantavirus here. And this might go over time, and if it does, you can listen to it on the podcast. And so basically, Hantavirus surveillance began in 1993 during an outbreak of severe respiratory illness in the Four Corners area, Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah. Hantavirus pulmonary syndrome became a nationally non-notifiable disease in 1995 and is now reported through the National Notifiable Disease Surveillance System. So that as of the end of 2022, there are 864 cases of Hantavirus in the United States since surveillance began. So where do you get this? I mean, there are a couple of states where, now I have a map right here. I'm going to describe it to you. Basically, all out west, there are greater than 50 cases, right, of this through the 2022. And they also have single-year cases, right, here in 2022. So in 2022, there's one case in Pennsylvania, one in Louisiana, one in Oklahoma, one in South Dakota, one in North Dakota, one in Wyoming, one in Utah, Nevada, and Oregon, one each, and Arizona, one, and New Mexico, 3. Right? So historically, looking at all the cases here, right? Yeah. Historically, looking at all the cases, they were mostly centered. I mean, there was none in New Jersey, 6 in New York, where I'm at here, right? New York, New Jersey area. But most of them have been out west, with New Mexico having 122 cases. Now, basically, how do you get that? The vector is through close contact with bodily fluids of mice. And there are multiple kinds. You have New York strain, you have Sonobra strain, you have multiple types here, right, with this. Mostly impacting men, 62, mostly white men, and median age, and they have all these statistics. But what is Hantavirus? There it is. That's a viral particle. Hantavirus are a family of viruses which can cause serious illnesses and death. These viruses cause diseases like Hantavirus pulmonary syndrome and hemorrhagic fever with renal syndrome. They're mainly spread by rodents and are not spread person to person. More information for everybody. Let's get signs and symptoms here. Fatigue, fever, muscle aches, especially large muscle groups like the thighs, hips, and backs, and sometimes shoulders. About half of all HVS experience headaches, dizziness, chills, abdominal problems like nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal pain. 4 to 10 days after the initial phase of illness, the late symptoms of APS appear. These symptoms include coughing and shortness of breath. Patients might experience tightness the chest as the lung fills with fluid, and it could be deadly. Hemorrhagic fever with renal syndrome. That's symptoms developable 1 to 2 weeks after exposure. In rare cases, they may take up to 8 weeks to develop. Initial symptoms can suddenly include intense headaches, back and abdominal pain, fever and chills, nausea, and blurred vision. People may have flushing in the face, inflammation, redness of the eyes, or a rash. Later symptoms include low blood pressure, lack of blood flow, internal bleeding, and acute renal failure, acute kidney failure. Which, right? And Hantavirus and Hantavirus infections cause severe symptoms where 5 to 15% of cases are favorable, right? Now, how do you reduce the risk? This is all according to the Centers for Disease Control. Basically, minimize all contact with rodents. Seal holes and gaps in your garage and everything else. Now, I've had to clean up several mouse infestations. And, with the droppings and everything else, what I do is I treat it like a biological cleanup. I mean, I'm in there with everything going on. It's like, really? Yeah, really. I'm in there with everything. And, I got the respirator on. I got, the respirator on. I got gloves on, and afterwards I take a shower after dealing with this because I know this is a real bad thing. With that, all of this was on the Certified Indoor Environmentalist test back in 2005 when I took it. Was on this types of infectious diseases, and every test has something different. But this is one of the ones on my test where I had to know about Hantavirus because that does impact indoor air quality. So I don't know what the test is now, but that's what I got here. I hope. Sorry for the interruption from my daughter. But we did have good information. So, freak accident. I tell you what, similar situation happened a couple of years back on the Palisades Parkway where a tree fell on a car. Ended up being a fatal car accident. Horrible, horrible situation. I guess when it's your time to go, it's your time to go. And had it fallen on the bus, right, there's a rather sizable limb that fell with the power line. Guess what? I think that would have likely caused a problem on the, we would have had multiple injuries on that school bus. So thank God nothing happened with that. So that's what I got. Thanks for listening, and I will see you on Monday. And for Safety Wars, this is Jim Posel.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.